All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 30th day of October, 2018. This year of illumination, we have a 4-day. Remember, we're just looking at the month and the day itself to derive the day's numerology. This is a 2018 reduces to 11. My computer's talking to me here. And so that's the master number for illumination. So I've just been leaving that alone this year and just looking at the month and the day to derive the day's numerology. I think that when we get a master number that serves for the entire year, I think we need to just leave it alone and pay attention to its message. It's definitely been an eye-opening year, hasn't it? We're learning an awful lot about lots of folks, and but we're also learning about each other and where we align. I think there's a channeled text called the Law of One, and I'm sure many of you have heard of it. But the Ra group, who was the entity that was channeled, defines things. Well, they don't define it. Source defines it, but life is defined in terms of, or people are defined in terms of service to self and service to others. And I think that service to others is where I think we think about the greater good beyond ourselves. I think that it doesn't mean that we're not, aware of what we need as well, but we look at it in the broader context. We see ourselves as part of something greater, than just ourselves, maybe. I don't know. Service to self can take all kinds of forms, but the most obvious is thinking only about one's own needs to the whole expense of everybody else. So I think that even if you just define yourself as one way or another, you can get kind of an insight maybe into what's going on here. It's about polarity and playing all of that out. But at some point, when we realize, and many people are calling that ascension, is the awareness that we are more than just these bodies, that we are part of a greater aspect of self that's collective in nature. At some point, the service to self gives way to service to others. It just has to. Eventually, it all gets folded back into the greater, source presence. That, of course, takes a long, long time, but I think that we're at a moment now where humanity has come far enough that we can begin to understand that it's not just about the individual, that it's about what's going to best serve humanity as a whole. So let's count 13 and see what this has to say for today, this 4-day of structure and Mother Earth energy and foundation and all of that. We'll see if it aligns with the day's numerology. Lately, it's been doing that, so it's been interesting. I count 13. It's just my process. It's not anything anyone else has to do. But when I'm drawing just one card, I don't like to just draw some draw 3, Let's see what we have here. Well, I'm going to have to use my candle because I don't have a light on. Oh, all right. The Pentacles. Well, it would have been cool if it had been the 4, but with the 3 of Pentacles, we see, again, Pentacles is the earth element, so it's the practical nature of self, practical side of self. So it's about our foundation. So it does align well. If we just look at the day itself, it's a 3, if we don't include the month in on that. So there we have an alignment, don't we? So clearly we ought to be thinking then today about alignment of mind, body, and spirit, allowing spirit to inform our practical side of self. But if we look at it from the 4 perspective of adding the month in as well on the numerology, I think what we're looking at is maybe pausing a little bit to consider the foundation that we've got going. What are we building? You know, a lot of the pentacle cards you see, like a lot of them are stonemasons. You see well, you see a lot of stonework in these cards in this particular suit, but it's about what we're building. You know, you can see that he's working on his craft. I think maybe I need to bring that over here. Well, that's worse, isn't it? If I just get closer. But you can see he's working diligently on his craft. He's really aligned. Nothing's distracting him. He's fully present in the moment. And you can see mind, body, and spirit aligning. Because he's very, very focused, isn't he? It's about nurturing your craft. It's about creation, divinity, and fate, I'm sorry. It's about even progression. So it really does align then today, doesn't it? Either if you're going to look at today as a 3, which is catalytic, and it's about unity and wholeness, triplicity, mind, body, and spirit alignment. But then if you add the 1 into it for October being the 10th month, so you reduce that to 1, and you add that to the 3, now you have 4. So now you have structure and Gaia energy. And either one is going to match up with this card. So today is definitely one that's about practical matters. Well, let's see what the rune has to say. Well, Vunyo. And Vunyo is the eighth rune of the Elder Futhark. And Vunyo is about joy, how we find our joy. You know, if you've ever listened to Bashar, Daryl Anka is channels Bashar. And if you ever listen to Bashar, he talks about living in your highest joy. And every time I see Vunyo, I think about that, about, okay, how am I living in my highest joy today? But Vunyo, along with, you know, Pentacles being an earth suit, Vunyo is an earth rune, actually. And it's about harmony and where we find our joy and our contentment and finding our true purpose. It's also known as the wish rune, but it can be about fellowship and empathy and but just coming together. You know, it's kind of the happily ever after rune. You know, I always like to pull the star card whenever I get Vunyo because it sort of aligns really well with that. But it also aligns well when you're working your craft, no matter what it is, whatever you're involved in, you know, whatever you're focused on, you know, make it reflect your highest joy. Make it come into a focus that reflects mind, body, and spirit alignment. And don't focus on things that aren't actually, you know, achieving that for you. So I think when we look at our either at the day for in terms of a 3 or a 4 day, it doesn't really matter here, does it? You know, we're looking at a sense of unity of self, a unity of mind, body, and spirit, that kind of alignment in our highest joy with Vunyo. And it's almost like you can see him expressing Vunyo just in the very action of his focus, can't you? So that's interesting. And if we do look at today as a 4, you know, Vunyo is just an amplification of 4. It's just, you know, 4 doubled. So it's a multiple of 4. So we're just talking about more harmony and more inner alignment. And so maybe today we want to maybe think about how we harmonize with others and understand that begins within. If we're chaotic inside, it's hard to, you know, extend that harmony and joy and all of that to other people. So it begins in here. So begin with that inner focus, make sure that's in harmony, make sure spirit's informing that process, and then extend that joy and harmony to others in fellowship. particularly now. We've had some tragedy here on the weekend. And, we might be a really big world, but our hearts are with these people and who have lost so much in just seconds. That's all it took, was seconds. So even if we can't be there physically for them, we can at least extend love and joy and peace and healing and harmony and purpose and unity to those that are suffering right now with these awful changes that have happened in their lives now in the blink of an eye because someone decided to ratchet up something within that unfortunately is being stimulated continually on a daily basis. We keep hearing, the saying words matter. Well, they do. They can calm, they can heal, or they can incite, and they can cause harm. And we all want to say, oh, not my, no, I know I said this, I got this person all upset, and then they went out and did something. Well, obviously, the person is responsible for what they do. But if you're intentionally stirring emotions in people, emotions that they then act on, don't you bear a little responsibility? Maybe, had those words never been spoken, maybe 11 people would be alive today that are not. Maybe if the words that we speak are about healing and compassion and love and joy and, unity with others, family with others, if our words reflected those principles, those ideas, instead of the kinds of things we're hearing today, particularly if you're in a position of authority, particularly if you're in a position of influence over others, if you're inciting hate and division, and then tragedy strikes, there is no way, if you are a person of such influence, that you can ever step aside from responsibility. Not when people listen so closely to what you say. And if you have people that have just been waiting for the moment to express themselves violently because they're so angry and they think someone in authority will give them cover, don't you bear responsibility? When I see pentacles come up in any reading, I think foundation. And who are we? What is our foundation? Clearly we're not very united right now. But what are we building? What is going to be left from all of this? It's one thing to disagree about how we might approach something, okay? We can do that all day long. But it doesn't have to result in 11 people dying at a bris in a synagogue. The fact that that's happening now is an outside catalyst that does not reflect our highest joy. It doesn't reflect mind, body, and spirit alignment, does it? It reflects something very, very dark that has settled over everything. The light is still present, but it takes turning one's focus to that. Instead, the focus seems to be on the darkness. and the separation and division, using code words to stir people up. But we came here together to build something together. And now all of that's threatened. So today, think about how we build our foundation. What is it that we're going to leave for our children? Is it going to be one that's reflective of joy and love and harmony? Or will it be what we're seeing now? So, find a way to live in your highest joy today. Stay focused, stay present, work on things that make you happy and give you purpose and fulfillment, and maybe leave something behind for someone else in the future. So, thanks so much for stopping by. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you've been here before, I'm so glad you're back. Click subscribe if you like. I'd love you to do that. Check out my blog. It's at imsteppingaside.com. It's called Stepping Aside. And be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and blessed be.